hindsight's always 2020, but fortunately in this digital age that we live in, we're able to follow things up and still go ahead and provide that information, provide that context that we wish we might have done on the first go around. And so I recently had the opportunity to sit down with Clinton Anderson on his Uncut Real Raw podcast. And him and I actually sat down for that conversation in the middle of April. And that's just the realities of running a big business where you've got to plan ahead and production takes time and those sorts of things. And I will make this abundantly clear, since I just said production, that interview is almost no cuts at all. The only cuts that are in that interview that they put in there was cuts when they had to change out memory cards, right? And that's when they did those sponsorship ads. So if you're watching it, you're like, hey, is this actually the full thing? That is the full, from the very time that we started and we shook hands to the time we said cheers at the end. That is the full-length conversation. But I've gotten a lot of messages of people asking me, like, why didn't we talk about certain things like the Charlotte Dujardin thing? We got on the whole focus of that podcast was talking about controversial issues in the horse industry, and the whole situation with Charlotte Dujardin blew up, and we didn't talk about it. And the reason was because it hadn't happened yet, right? So that's certainly something that I'm willing to talk about and we could talk about in a future video and those sorts of things. But there's 4 particular things that I wanted to go through and follow up with you really quickly. We are going to be doing a live Q&A though on Saturday, where I'm going to answer your questions, whether it's horsemanship questions, whether it's business questions, and questions about the interview and that whole thing, of things that got said there, my 2 cents, and anything that you guys are curious about this upcoming Saturday. But in a direct follow-up with this, I wanted to go through these 4 things because these were things that stuck out to me. As being the person that had the opportunity to do the interview, I spent a lot of time thinking about it ahead of time. Plenty of time with my wife in the truck, driving back to Texas from Arkansas, talking about how I thought it went, and then the months in between, and then actually getting to go through and see that interview. And I probably have a different perspective than some folks because I'm the one that was in the hot seat per se. But these were 4 things that I wanted to share with you. I'm going to kind of start with one of the ones that I think is the most important piece of this. And then I'm going to get into some bits and pieces of the conversation. And the first thing is that towards the end of the interview, I gave credit to my wife. I straight up said to Clinton there that, hey, him and I would not have the opportunity to be sitting there having that conversation if it isn't for everything that my wife does. And it's because my wife and I, we have built our businesses from the ground up, shoulder to shoulder together, right? And everything that we do, we've built together. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Some folks don't understand, how can you work with your spouse that closely all the time? And it's just, God brought us together. God gave us each other, and He set us on this mission. We don't know, we don't have any clue exactly of what all He has in store for us. But I gave the credit to her for that. And the one area that I didn't shed light on is the credit due to God. Because our relationship and my relationship with God has been on a fast and furious journey the last 2.5 years since we moved to Texas. We moved to Texas a lot for culture, but also to change the business model, which I'll talk about here more in a second, and to be able to build the businesses that we want to. And over the last 2.5 years, it's been extremely challenging on our business front. And I want to be transparent about that because you have to take big risks and you have to have some faith. And sometimes you get at certain points where you got nothing left but faith. Because I'm that guy, and many of us, men and women in the horse industry, are this way. Where we're gonna carry the boats. We're gonna pack the heavy weight on. We're gonna work as hard as we have to. We're gonna make the sacrifices. We're gonna do whatever we possibly have to do to find a way to make it work. And we'll do it, right? We will do it. And there's been multiple times in the last 2.5 years in running our businesses and making the changes and trying to serve people, whether that's our horsemanship community or whether that's the professionals in the industry. And there's been so many times where, I look back in the behind the camera here because there's a corner. And I feel like so many times I've been backed into that corner and just sat down. And have I literally sat down in the corner and just put my hands on my knees? No. Okay. But I feel like there's been so many times where I've run, I don't have any ideas. I don't know how this is going to work out. I'm getting tired. I'm getting stressed out. I don't know. The only thing I have is faith, in almost a ridiculous level of faith that it's going to work out, right? It's like it has to work out. I've come this far. I've worked this hard. I'm trying to do things for the right reason. I'm trying to listen to what I'm meant to be doing on this earth and the purpose and the mission that God has made me for. And there's been still in that, the closer that I feel like I've gotten to what I'm meant to be doing as a man for my family, for the industry, for the purpose that God intended for me to fulfill during my time here on earth. There's been instances where it's been extremely difficult where I've just got nothing left. Got nothing. I don't know where the money's going to come from. I don't know where the clients are going to come from. I don't know how it's going to work out. And all I had was faith. And every single time it's worked out. And so I didn't shed enough light, I didn't really shed any light on the fact that, God is the reason that we're at where we're at. And I feel like that in the journey that we're on, God provides us with what we need. And he gives us platforms and he gives us opportunities where when we get those opportunities, when we get those stages, it's our responsibility to then give him the spotlight. Like he provides us with that platform. He provides us with the opportunities. He provides us with a certain level of success. And then it's our job, because he gave that to us, that when we're standing up there on that pedestal, when we're standing on that stage, when we're standing there having that conversation with somebody, that it's our job to give that spotlight back to God. And so I want to bring that up because I wouldn't be where I'm at without my relationship with God. We wouldn't be able to serve you guys and do the things that we're doing, because everything that we are doing is basically me following what I feel like he is leading us to be doing. Okay. And that's just merely the journey I'm on. Some of you guys will relate to that. Some of you guys won't. That's totally fine. But that was a big piece that I wanted to head out. That was the most important piece. But there's some other stuff that I want to get into now as far as the interview goes, about talking about horse slaughter, talking about the mob, as well as discussing the business model piece that I feel like I kind of dropped the ball on that podcast. But I was still settling in. The nerves were still there. I was nervous a little bit getting that thing started. And that question was right out of the gate. So I've got some things I want to share with you about that. So let's just keep going. Let's get into it. So the first thing I want to tackle is fighting the mob, right? There was something here that I lost my train of thought on that I really want to dive into. And then we'll get into our business model. And the last thing I want to talk about is the change in the horsemanship industry, because I think that particular piece, I threw that question to Clinton, but I didn't necessarily get it back. I want to share with you my 2 cents on that particular piece. And so the first thing is fighting the mob, right? I refer to these folks as the purple hair crew that has a little pet as a profile picture on social media. Clinton called them the crazy fucking liberals. It's kind of a synonym. It's an equal sign in between. It is the same thing. And one of the big things that we were discussing is how that side of the aisle fights with emotion, right? And they're the smallest group of people, but they're the loudest because they have extremely big mouths, and it can feel overwhelming if you're on the receiving end of all of that backlash from these people, because they fight with emotion and they really do fight dirty, right? They fight personally. They say that they're going to come after you. They're going to come after your kids. They hope you die, like all this crazy stuff, right? And because they fight extremely dirty. But when you look at the numbers, when you look at it from a factual standpoint, they're the smallest group of people. They're the minority of the particular situation. And in this particular conversation, when I was talking with Clinton, the thing that I basically lost my train of thought on was the fact that they always go to the extremes to try to make their point. And they're always pulling on what makes them feel good. It's never about what's actually better for the horse or better for another person. It's always about what makes the person that's just freaking getting after it on the keyboard feel better, right? And so they'll talk about, we should let the Mustangs be wild and free. And that, in a perfect world, feels really fucking good, right? It does. We'd all love for there to be enough forage and enough food and enough space for all the horses to be wild. But that's not the world that we live in, right? The land can sustain 25,000 horses or so, and there's like 75 to 90,000 of them running on the rangelands. Guess what? They're going to starve to death. But the feel good part is, no, we should let them be wild and free, and then they want to go after so many horses die from helicopter roundups. And it's like less than 0.1%, I think it is, that actually have the chance of getting injured or dying from a helicopter roundup. I saw these statistics recently. It's one of those things that it's not factual. It's not factual at all. They're totally fighting off of emotion, using the most extreme examples that you possibly can think of. And it's always about what makes them feel good. And that when they do this, the unassuming person that's just reading the comments, some city slicker that's like, I didn't even know there was a Mustang. I didn't even know that this was a horse slaughter was an issue. I didn't even know that this was an issue of ethical horse training approaches. I didn't know that was an issue. And they go to the comments and they see all these emotional idiots that are going in there. And for the unassuming person that's trying to become informed or is just initially first becoming aware of the situation, they see all this stuff. And it's easy to get in the trap of following the herd that is going off of what feels good, okay? Because there is what feels good and then there is reality. And what we have to end up dealing with is reality. But these crazy purple-haired, little pet icon idiots that are out there fighting with emotion, what we have to realize on the other side of the aisle when it comes to actually fighting this mob of people, even though we know that they're the smallest amount, we have to be making sure that we're taking proper steps to combat what they're saying. Because what they're saying hits emotionally, and that reaches the unassuming people. That reaches the people that don't know the facts, right? And they get there first because those types of arguments have virality. The things that get emotional, that trigger the heartstrings, that make you sad, and all those types of things, a little Sarah McLachlan, ASPCA sound going in the background. That's the stuff that reaches people, right? And we have to understand that if we want to keep this industry, we have to fight that other side of the aisle, and we have to address the fact that they're fighting with extreme arguments that aren't based in reality, and what they're actually suggesting by leaving all the horses out in the fucking range is actually the worst thing that you possibly could do, because there's no grass. They're gonna starve to death. They're gonna run out of sticks to eat. There's gonna be no bark left, right? It doesn't work, right? And then there's the realities of all these other situations that go into dealing with this. And we have to, in this video, I'm not going into all the situations these emotional idiots go into, but we have to understand that we have to leverage what they're leveraging, which is we have to use a little bit of emotional warfare, their own emotional warfare, to get through, to be heard, right? Because if we just go, well, there is 75,000 horses on the rangeland and it can only hold 25,000. And so we need to reduce the numbers. No one's going to listen, right? No one's going to listen. We're talking about horse slaughter and like, well, we really need to reopen these kill plants, right? So that we can butcher horses. Like, that doesn't sound good at all, right? But we say, hey, listen, there are pets that are starving in people's backyards and they have Fluffy. And guess what? They're afraid to ask for help. They don't want to ask for help because they're too proud, right? They don't have anywhere to send the horse. They don't want to rehome the horse necessarily. And we need to open these slaughter plants because these horses that are in these situations, if there was a slaughter plant involved, when that person started to realize that they weren't going to be able to afford that horse, but what they could do, because money's tight and things are tough in life, if they realized they could take it down to their local auction house and that horse would get bought and that would put a couple $100 or maybe $1,000 or $2,000 in their pocket because they were able to sell that horse through the auction, that could help them buy groceries, and then that horse would go on and that horse wouldn't starve to death. Because I think at the end of the day, many of us people, even the people that end up in dire straits with their animals, they don't want that animal to suffer. But right now, there's not an option. There's not an option, right? They can rehome it, but they don't want to just rehome it, right? They're too proud to ask for help to see if they can get donations for feed. And this is just the reality. People, some of you guys might go in the comments and be like, and it'd be the emotional idiots that do. But people don't do that. And it's like, yes, they do. They absolutely do. They absolutely do, right? And they turn horses loose in the coal mines of West Virginia, and those horses have to fend for themselves up there. And that's a whole nother issue. That's that's not even the Mustang issue. That's support people just setting horses loose, right? Versus having an option where there's a baseline value where that person could get a couple $100 or $1,000 for their horse. They could then use that money to go pay for groceries. That animal doesn't starve. There's an incentivization to keep feeding that animal because there's a baseline value for it. Right now, there's no baseline value, so horses starve to death because they're worth the same in healthy weight as in poor weight because there's nothing to do with them. They can't do anything with them. So they're just like, well, I'll just hold on to the animal, quit feeding it. And that's rank. It's absolutely wrong. It's devastating. It is sickening. It is extremely, extremely sad that the animal's in that situation, but it's really, really sad that people end up in that situation, because I feel like at the fundamental level, people don't want to end up in that situation. They don't want to. They love these animals, but life's complicated, right? It's not easy making those decisions. And so we need to have the avenues to make those decisions for the horse's best interest in mind way, way, way easier, okay? I can go into more than that on the Q&A if you guys are interested in talking about the freaking woke mob and all those idiots. Because it's not so much about talking about them, but it's talking about how are we going to keep this industry, right? We got to fight the woke mob, because they're in LA right now trying to ban rodeo, trying to ban all events with animals in LA right now. And guess what? They're going to go to the next fucking city, and they're going to go to the next city, and they're going to go to the next city, and they're going to go to the next city. And Western Justice is the only one that's out there fucking fighting them. They're the only ones fighting them, right? And we as an industry got to get behind Western Justice, and we have to get behind ourselves to start standing up to these idiots, because you can't bow down, and you have to say something, right? This doesn't get fixed at all by us standing, just having these conversations behind closed doors. We have to get this conversation out there, and you have to know that there's going to be backlash from the woke mob, but guess what? They're the fucking minority. We have to reach the people that they're reaching, but we got to reach them first. And we have to reach them effectively to where they actually capture their attention, and then we can share the facts with them, right? But we have to be able to communicate it in a way that it sinks in. The woke mob does it because it triggers emotions. And guess what? Emotions are feelings, and feelings is experiences, and that sticks. We have to do the same thing. But we've got to do it so we don't lose our freaking industry, because as Clinton said, his little prediction was the fact that we might lose this industry in 50 years or so. Right, and then we won't be able to train horses. We won't be able to do these things. And guess what? I don't know whether that's true or not. But what I do know is that there's people out there fighting for that. So it's a possibility. It's absolutely a possibility. So we gotta actually, I plan on still being in this industry in 50 years, and if God blesses me with the opportunity to still be doing that, I want there to be an industry to be had. Right? I don't want us to look back at this and go, man, we should have done something. Too little, too late. But we might end up there. So the last two things that I want to dive into is, one, the first question that Clinton asked me on the podcast, and number two, where does the start change in the quality of horsemanship that we have here in the United States, and what do we need to do about that, okay? So the first question that Clinton asked me on the podcast was, hey, mate, you moved down to Decatur, Texas. What's your business model? What do you do? And very transparent, I went on that podcast knowing that nobody knows who I am, okay? Very, very few people know who I am. And so I wanted to give the backstory into what we're doing, and we filmed that in mid-April. So we were getting ready to go into our spring/early summer session for the Professional Horseman School. And that's basically where my head was at. So we spent the majority of the time talking about the Professional Horseman School. However, that's a fraction. It's a sliver of what we end up doing, because we offer those sessions in spring and early summer, and then we offer them late fall. Okay, for the Professional Horseman School. And so we're getting ready to go into our fall session here in a couple of weeks right now. And so we'll have all these things that I'm going to talk with you. We're going to link it down below. So if you're curious about checking out what we actually do and what it looks like, you can. But that's in the conversation with Clinton. That's basically what we end up talking about. But that's not everything that we actually do. All right, it's not just the school itself. And so we do have rein cow horses. They're mainly personal horses. We do sales horses here, and we sell a select few number of horses every year. One of the big things that we do on the horsemanship level, because my family is growing and I've gone from teaching upwards of 10, 20, 25 clinics a year and traveling and doing the major expos. I still teach a few clinics every year around the country, and I still teach at a few expos as those invites kind of come into the inbox and we work those terms out. But spending more time here at the facility, teaching people at our facility here in Decatur, Texas, with helping people with their horsemanship, one of my biggest things is making information accessible to you guys. And so we have an online community with our video training library and all those things. And it's called the Cavi community. And the biggest thing is just that separates that from other things is the approach that I have to working with horses and that working partnership. And so my goal is to continue making that information accessible. We add videos to that thing almost every single week for you guys, and it's loaded and decked out. And so that is what we do on the horsemanship side of things. And we do train a select number of horses. If you go on the website, you'll be able to apply for horse training services. And we do train a select few horses from time to time for particular clients. Not the main staple. A lot of what we do is education focused, right? Education on horsemanship for the general public. Professional Horseman School is for those that want to build a career in the industry as professionals, because we take you through how to actually build your business and develop your horsemanship through the school. And the big chunk of what we do is we have a business called Horse Business Manager, which is an all-in-one software platform. It's the tool. It's just like your horse training toolbox. If you're a farrier, it's just like your skills in your toolbox there. But this is to run your business. It's to make things way more efficient, to make things way more organized, to get you paid quicker. It is to make your marketing better, to do your branding, to diversify your income, to make you more profitable. It is an extremely affordable and highly effective tool that we've built. Initially building that for our own business. And then over years, naturally, people are like, hey, what are you using? How can we get access to that? And that turned into us developing the company called Horse Business Manager. And that is a big part of what we do, because I know as a horse professional myself, the better that our business runs, the better that we can serve our horses, the better we can serve our clients, the better we can serve our families, the better we can serve our communities and even ourselves. And that's been a big part that God's pushed me to, because I grew up in a family of international business. The business part is my foundation. It's something that I'm very blessed to be good at. And I know that ultimately my mission has been to help as many horses and people as possible. And I have the opportunity to help people through Horse Business Manager, through getting you guys access to that platform, so that way you can run your businesses in a lot less stressful way, in a lot less frustrating way, and a lot more professionally. So that way you're more organized, all the stuff, right? And that will reach the people and the horses that you're serving as well. And together we can make this industry a better place. And so I never had any intentions and desires in being in the software business. We also have Horse Business Solutions, which is an offshoot of that, which is we do marketing services, website services, graphics, branding, all that. We do offer that because that's what my wife did. Right? That before my wife started helping me full time in my horse training business and growing that, that's what she did for the horse community. She's worked for some of the top, she's done work for top clinicians, top Western riders, top English riders, breeding facilities, on international levels. And so that's what she was doing while I was building my horse training business. And then over the last 2.5 years or so, we really combined forces and said, let's just take what we both do really well and offer that to professionals, because that's how we can help make this industry a better place. And so we do that through Horse Business Manager. And in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be launching what we call Horse Business Builders Network. Okay. And this is the tools, it's the knowledge, and it's the community for horse professionals to come together in one central place, in one community, where we have layered so much knowledge and information in there to give people access to running their businesses, on the marketing, the branding, the course designs, all of the websites, all of this stuff. We're packing this stuff full, but it's first a community for us to come together to share knowledge, share insights, to support each other, to do business together, have access to the knowledge, and you'll also have access to the tools of Horse Business Manager within that network. Because one of the biggest things that I want to see is I want to see our industry get stronger, and I believe that it starts with professionals. That's why we're pouring so heavily into helping professionals in their business, because we know that if we can reduce the stress that you have as running your business, the better that you can take care of your horses, your clients, your students, and everyone involved. And our industry gets better because you're able to do your job at a better level, right? Many of us got started in this business because of our love for horses and the craft that we have, not to do the entrepreneurship business running thing. I happen to love business and love horses, and that's the direction God's pushed me in, is to help people in that. So that's why we've gone down this path. And I do believe it starts with professionals, right? So that's a perfect segue into this last piece here, where I threw Clinton the question of, hey, we have a deficient level of horsemanship in the industry across the board. What do we need to do? Where does it start to change the tides and increase the quality of horsemanship across the industry? And I threw that question to him because, first and foremost, when I went into that interview, I was there to learn. Okay, I was there to learn. I had the opportunity to sit down with somebody who has almost 20 years more experience than me in this business. And so I asked Clinton questions throughout the interview because I wanted to know his answers. I wanted to learn from him. And I threw that question to him. As the conversation just developed, the question didn't necessarily come back. And it was just as the conversation went, it was no harm, no foul. However, I completely agree with what he said, which is it starts with professionals. If we want to see recreational riders, adult amateur riders, non-pro riders have a higher quality of horsemanship, right? And to me, horsemanship's not just a way to train a horse. It's everything we do with our horses. And then I'll take it a step further. It's everything we do within our own lives, okay? And so if people are willing to adopt the fact that, hey, horsemanship's not just a way to train a horse, it's everything we do with our horses and in our own lives, then what do we need to actually be doing to be able to foster a culture of higher quality horsemanship here in the United States or wherever you are, so that way we can make this industry better, not just for us today and our horses today, but for the horses of tomorrow and the next generation, right? Of horses and for people. And it starts with the professionals elevating their expectations, elevating the standards in which they do things and they hold their students accountable for, right? And that might mean that we have to increase, like, what do you teach? There's no more, we have to get rid of this. Well, we're just doing this because we've always done it this way. That is the freaking kiss of death in any industry, particularly the horse industry, whether it's training methodologies or running your business or anything like that. It's just doing it because we've always done it that way, right? We have to be evolving. We have to be finding new and better ways to approach things, whether it's on the horse level, on the business level, on the client level, on the student level, on the teaching level. All of those things we have to be constantly improving upon. And I find that it starts with professionals, ultimately in how they're approaching their training program, right? How you're approaching, and this can be farriers and body workers and all of these sorts of things, but it's the standards in which we hold our clients to. But that we can't hold our clients to a standard that we're not holding ourselves to, right? So it starts with us. It starts with us leveling up the standards that we have for ourselves and the standards that we run our business at. And then therefore it can be passed along to the standards we expect of our students, which means we have to be willing to let go of people that are not the right fit, that do not fit that culture, that will not put the work in to meet the standard, right? Horses are not a right. No one just has the right to be able to do things with horses. No one just has the right to be in your barn. It's a privilege. It's 100% a privilege, right? And I think that we have to become very bullish on, hey, there should be certain, there's so many avenues you can take with this on do you require your students to be physically fit to go out and ride horses? I'll go ahead and crack that nut open, right? Because there's a point at which if we want our horses to be athletes, we need to be athletes, okay? So does the standard start to require the fact that, hey, within certain parameters, you have to be extra, you have to be getting fit to do this? And guess what? My mom used to be a flight attendant back in the day, and they had weight requirements for flight attendants, okay? That is what it is. You can agree or disagree, but guess what? It was a quality standard, right? Based on your height, you had to be a certain weight, okay? Well, I don't think that's such a bad thing, to be perfectly honest with you, because it upheld the quality that business expected of their employees so they can provide a high quality experience to their clients, to their customers, right? Well, we're asking our horses to go do athletic things. Is it really that much to ask for us to eat healthy and to be an athlete and to work out and to stretch and take care of yourself, right? It's like, don't be a slob. Don't be fat. Go do something about it, right? And people are like, well, that's none of our business. That, like, we're just here to do horse stuff. You are, if that's what you choose to do. But as professionals, it's really, really, really important that we set the standard. And you can turn people away. You can tell people, hey, this is where you're at. This is what we expect in our program. Are you going to put in the work? Yes, you agree to put in the work. Now I'm going to hold you accountable. If you don't do it, you're going to be dismissed from the program, okay? Because we have requirements, right? It's like athletes, right? If we look at what athletes, if they can't perform, if the person can't perform, they don't get to play on the team. They get cut. Why? Because they can't meet the standard. And I think that there's certain things that we have to keep in mind within the horse industry, that if we want to keep this industry around, we have to increase the quality of our standards. And guess what? I'm just throwing a couple things out there. You get to pick what they are for you. But as an industry as a whole, we can start to challenge each other from professional to professional. This is something I'd love to talk about in Horse Business Network, Builders Network, right? When we get that community up and launched here in the next 2 weeks, this is something that we're definitely going to be diving into, because so if you're somebody that's like, yes, I want to expand those connections and do those types of things and have these meaningful conversations, that's where we're going to be doing it. Okay, that's where we're going to be having this, because we can have those conversations in that community without worrying about the whole cancel culture bullshit, because it's a private community. Only people that can get in there are professionals. And this is something I'm definitely stoking the fire on as soon as we get that group up, because ultimately we need to increase the quality of horsemanship, right? We need to increase the quality standards of what we expect of our students when we're teaching them the basics, that they need to be able to be safe by being around the horse, when they need to know how to catch the horse out of the field. They need to know how to pull a shoe off of a horse if they need to be able to pull a shoe off the horse. They need to be able to tack their own horse up. They need to know how to do proper groundwork, how to deal with behavioral and mannerisms and things that are unacceptable, right? They need to understand how to do actual rein management. It's not just about getting on that horse, pulling on its face and jumping over a jump or go chasing around barrels, right? It's about quality horsemanship starting from young ages, right? Having gone over to China in 2018, I lived in China when I was much younger, but in 2018, I went back to China to actually to see how that industry was developing, and in the horse industry, because the horse industry there is booming. And the most interesting thing was the main focus in that industry, in that marketplace, is them developing young riders, right? There's not, because it's such a new business, a lot of the parents are going, you know what, I'm kind of beyond being able to get good at this. And so instead of me trying to go and learn how to horse ride, I'm just going to give them that, we're going to put that money aside and let our kids start to do it. And that was fascinating, because they're going to create, they're starting with the next generation, and it's going to be very potent. Like when you start to look at the Olympics, and you start looking at they're going to be developing very high quality riders, because they have a standard, and the Chinese are using the British Horse Society, the BHS, as their standard for developing those riding schools and developing those riding academies. Here in the United States, we don't have anything like that. I don't think that we should have government regulation or that type of regulation involved in the horse industry per se, but we do need to come together as a free market, as a capitalistic type community, and say, we need to, because guess what? If your quality increases and the next person quality increases and someone else doesn't, they get pushed out of business, right? As together, as we all start to step up the quality that we expect and that we're executing on, we can together rise the tide of the industry together without getting the fucking government involved, right? Without getting these big associations that are run by a bunch of liberal idiots to tell us how we're supposed to be doing our jobs. That's the worst fucking thing that we could do. Okay, so I do not believe at all, and that happened on TikTok, where people think, oh, you're saying that we should have regulations. Like, fuck no, absolutely not. We should not be doing that. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up, because I just wanted to tackle these 4 things here. I know this is hot, that you guys are going to have comments, you're going to have questions about this. I'm going to put the link down below to that Q&A that's coming up. If you want to go in and jump in there and join us, we're going to do it via Zoom. So you'll just have to put your name and your email address in, and so I can send you the Zoom link, and then you can jump on there. We can dive into, I'll answer your questions, all that sort of fun stuff. About all these industry issues, horsemanship related, business development, about the podcast with Clinton, all that fun stuff. If you're going to be an idiot and show up as a liberal idiot and try to like wreck the party, I'll kick you out. So don't even waste your time doing that. But if you're there to actually learn and have some fun, we're going to do that on Saturday, and I'll look forward to meet with you guys there. With that being said, thanks guys. I really appreciate all the new faces that have joined us coming over from Clinton's group, coming over here. I'm really excited to have you guys here. I hope you guys stick around for a period of time. I'm just going to be me. I'm going to do what I do. We're going to talk about some controversial stuff. I'm bringing you guys horse training content as well, business development, all that fun stuff. So check out the links down in the bio, and we'll see you guys later.